Good evening. Welcome back to Cap and Trade, a special Friday night episode. I am your host, Texans Cap. You can follow me on Twitter at Texans Cap. If you prefer the written form, capandtrade.substack.com. Got a good episode tonight. I've revamped my desk, and I'm hoping everything sounds okay because I've got new equipment. I've got a new audio interface. I changed out my other one. I've got the Stream Deck going. We're going to be, so if you see any audio or technical glitches, throw them up on the board so I can see it. I hope everything's functioning correctly, but we'll see how it goes tonight. And hey, Beige, good to see you, man. Thanks for the warm welcome over on the Discord. I'm enjoying that. That's fun. I'm gonna have to really dig in and learn about Discord and all that. So the Moderate Texans podcast. Hey, bud, good to see you. Good, nice and clear so far. Good to see you. Yeah, man, I'm excited. It looks like Elgato basically puked on my desk at this point. I've got the Stream Deck. I've got the Wave XLR now. I've got their Boomar. I still have my trusty Shure mic, which is a very inexpensive mic that I got from Cody Stutes a long time ago. But that thing's very, very good. So I'm not changing that out. But yeah, so tonight, good night, Friday night. Not sponsored by Coke Zero tonight, sponsored by these folks. So let's get going. So I kind of looked at Ogbonnia Okoronkwo, defensive end for the Houston Texans. He's a pending free agent, and he's an interesting candidate for the Texans. I'm not entirely sure how he's going to fit with the new scheme with D'Amico Ryans, if he's going to be a good fit for that, because he's a little bit on the lighter side. He's only 240 pounds, 6'1". But the good thing is he's only 27. He's in the prime of his career, and he had a really good season, especially the back half of the season for Houston. And, it was overall, it was a good campaign for him. He started off a little slow. It took, just didn't have quite the playing time, but as the season went on, especially the last probably like 6-7 games, he was very effective, even at his lighter weight, in a traditional 4-3 defensive end role, putting his hand in the dirt, because he didn't really do that in Los Angeles before he came over to Houston. And he was very effective the last 7, 8, 6 games. And, it was great to see that growth from him and really take on the new role and just have some good production. And he was, run game, it's tough. At his size, he's going to get swallowed up sometimes. And we'll see that in the stats that I have set up here. His run game, his run scoring and his grade was a little bit lower than you would like, but it's on the flip side. Conversely, his pass rush grade was very, very good. And I think if you were to go back and look at his performance over probably the last 6-7 weeks of the season, it'll bear out. He was a very, very effective player. And I think it's somebody that Houston needs to consider. I think the it's a player that the team needs to consider bringing back, regardless of his weight or size. He's only, like I say, he's 240. And looking back at San Francisco's defense, which we don't know if that's the same full-fledged scheme that's going to be brought to Houston, we got to assume that majority of it's going to be brought over. But everybody on that defensive line is 260 and up. I think Samson Ibuka is the lightest one, and I think he's probably in the 250 range. Everybody else is 260 and up. So Ogbo being 240 may not be a fit for this scheme, but we'll see. If he employs the wide 9 system, it might work. And so, he was kind of more of a rotational player to start with, and really turned into an effective player. It was genuinely a starter towards the end of the year. So got a few, what we'll do tonight is, this is laid back. It's a lot of fun. If you got any questions, man, throw them up on the board. I'll stop and we'll answer. This is informal. This is not like the the Wednesday night show where I have a guest and we're going through a specific format and things like that. Tonight's just, more fun, more laid back. And so I've got some player comps that I want to look at their contracts, kind of get a ballpark of what market value Okoronkwo may be looking at. And then we'll look at their contracts, and then we'll get inside the contract constructor like we did with the Tunsil extension deal. And we'll start building it out and see what we come up with. I've kind of got a ballpark idea of what I think it should be. It's a little aggressive, I will admit that. I think so. My buddy at PFF, Brad Spielberger, has access to tons more data than I do, unfortunately. He pegged it at a little lower value than what I came up with, and so I'm curious. I'm gonna send this over to Brad after we're done, and I'm gonna kind of get his opinion on it. I have a feeling he's gonna tell me that I'm a little aggressive on it, probably a little too zealous. Maybe got my blinders on as being the player, being a former Texan. But I think this is truly a contract that is probably pretty accurate once he hits the free market and sees what his value is. I think there's a place for Okoronkwo on multiple rosters for the skill set that he brings. So let's see, we got a couple questions up here real quick before we dive into things. So Travis says, quick question, when can we actually start re-signing players that had their contracts expired? So if they were with Houston, they can re-sign them anytime, at any time at all, from now up until the start of free agency on March 15th. If it's a player outside of the organization, obviously, then they can't. They would need to wait until March 15th when the new league year starts. So that would be, our players. Okay. Yeah. So our players, they can sign any of them right now, but teams are pretty, especially Houston, they're a little busy right now. They're getting the coaching staff rebuild up. We saw that today. A lot of news breaking with coaching hires with Matt Burke on the defensive coordinator, the team interviewing Cliff Kingsbury as offensive coordinator. So it seems like it's between Kingsbury and Slowick at this point for offensive coordinator. Frank Ross is going to be retained, so that's exciting. He's a very, very good special teams coach, so it's good to see him retained. They got a safeties coach hired, so staff is slowly building out. So I think the team and folks are kind of really focusing in on that. And then once they get settled through this initial period, then probably, first couple weeks of March, if they've got any players that they want to re-sign, hopefully they can get those done. They've got, I think, 24 pending free agents. Realistically, there's only like 4 or 5 players that are probably worth re-signing from that list. And Okoronkwo is probably at the top of the list. So let's get into it. And before we get in there, so Marco makes a perfect point. If you're at this point in free agency, if you're scheduled to be a free agent March 15th, there's absolutely no reason to take an offer from Houston right now, unless you just know for sure that contract is going to beat the market. But more often than not, that's not. The Texans are probably going to lay out their initial offer and say, hey, here's what we got. Go check out the market, see what you can get. All we ask is that you come back and let us know what it is. And that way we can readjust and see if maybe we can match it. Maybe we can work things out to get you here back with Houston. But Marco makes a great point. At this point in time, there's no reason for them to stick with Houston. And, go see what the market brings you. So I'm trying to get started here, but everybody's throwing up stuff, and I appreciate it. I love it. So thank God Pep is gone. How much do you think Jacoby Myers could cost? I'm thinking 10 to 12 million. I haven't really dug in yet. And the free agency market, and yes, Pep is still under contract at the moment, but he's not going to be on this coaching staff this year for 2023. If he gets hired on somewhere else, then there'll be the offset in salary, things like that. But he's going to get paid this year, whether it's by Houston or someone else. As for Jacoby, I think that's fair. 10 to 12. The free agency wide receiver class is a cluster right now, and the draft is decent. So maybe Myers can parlay that into a little bit bigger contract. But being an undrafted free agent is going to hurt him a little bit. It's very rare that a player that is an undrafted free agent hitting free agency can pull an AJ Boye per se and hit a top of the market deal. Myers is not a top of the market wide receiver. So, yeah, I think 10 to 12 is fair. So, all right, let's dig into it. Let me get the share up here. All right. Oh, perfect. My stream deck works. Get to swap around. All right, cool. That works. So let me get that situated. All right, so let me Max get this thing up here a little bit bigger so everybody can see it. So this is the player contracts that I was kind of looking at as compensate, as comparables, and that they're called player comps is generally what's referred to in the agent world and team in the football administration world. And so we got our top line here with Okoronkwo's, his size, draft year, drafted in the 5th round. He's got 5 years experience, played edge defensive end this year, and the OTC valuation. So if you're not familiar with the OTC valuation, this is just a way to translate a player's value into a dollar figure, which would be essentially an APY, right? So 4.85 million. That's got a lot of figures built into it, a lot of variables, snap counts, opponent adjustment. It's built around PFF player grades. It's got a lot built into it. And so it doesn't just specifically correlate with the player grade. It's got a lot of other metrics that are built into it. So it's just a snapshot in time. It's not meant to say this player is worth $4.8 million a year. Okay. The market drives that. The market variables drive that, and what's out there, what the agent can do, what kind of sales job he can put out, what team needs are, what other players are at the same positional value vying for the same contract, things like that. So don't just harp on and say, oh, he's worth 4.8 million, so you should get a contract for 4.8 million per year. This is just a way to measure the value. You can stack it up against other players. So the next line is just his metrics this year that I wanted to look at. He played 17 games, which is great. Had no health issues this year. 517 snaps. So he was a little low on the snap count, so 44%. But that's a function of the first probably 7 games where he was only pulling 15, 20% of the snaps. The last part of the season, he was still a rotational player, but he was more or less a starter opposite of Jerry Hughes between him and John Gennard. And John Gennard, as we know, didn't come on till late till the end of the season. So this number is a little bit lower than you want to see. But on the flip side, it means he's got a lot of, not a lot of wear and tear. So these are some PFF grades. You got your overall defensive grade, 75.1. Pass rush or pass defense, as you want to say, pass rush grade, 81.9, which was actually, I think, ranked 17th across the league. So a very good number. And as we talked about, his size being 240 pounds, the run defense grade takes a hit. He gets swallowed up. He gets lost in the shuffle. And that's just going to happen at that weight. So he's think of it as the Jacob Martin from 2 years ago, who's got a lot of burst, a lot of speed, not very good in the run game. So he had 36 quarterback pressures. So PRP total. So this is pass rush productivity. And this is a rate. It's pressures and hits and sacks. Wait, take that back. Hits and sacks and something else. It's all the pressures added up with a heavy weighted towards sacks. And so it's a rate. It's basically a metric. And so it's a way to just take the numbers and put them in a rate and then be able to genuinely stack them up against the other players. So I think this pass rush productivity number was for total 8.1. Get a 19% win percentage on pass rushes. And then TPS, which is true pass set. So PFF has started eliminating like screen plays, throwaways, anything that's not a true drop back, five step, 7-step, 3-step, true drop back pass set. So they're able to filter out those plays. And so his PRP at that was 12.1, which is a very, very good number. I think that was top 20. And he had 25% win rate. And then his run stop number, 8.8%. That's a little bit low, especially for defensive end. But like we talked about, that's a function of that. So the players that we were looking at, kind of a wide berth, and it's tough to find. It's just kind of the middle class of pass rush, things like that. And, I kind of wanted to look at both top end and bottom end of the range. And we got Sam Hubbard with Cincinnati, Derek Barnett, who unfortunately didn't play this year with Philadelphia, but still a contract to look at. Charles Harris with Detroit, Samson Ibukam with San Francisco, Dwayne Smoot with Jacksonville, Jacob Martin with Denver, and Arden Key with Jacksonville. Arden Key might be a player to watch out for, as he has some time and history with D'Amico Ryan. Same with Samson, because they're both free agents. What we looked at is their free agent signing year, the year they signed the contract. And then all these metrics here are the years prior to signing this contract. I don't want to look at the numbers for the player after signing the contract. We see it from time to time. Players sometimes will play a little bit better in the contract year. And so you just want to look at the numbers leading up to the contract. And some of these things I kind of have to average out. Unfortunately, you can't look at PFF and look at a grade 1 year. And then, you can look at PFF grades over a span of weeks. If you have the elite membership, like I use, you can look at it over a number of weeks, but you can't look at it over a number of years. So you kind of have to do a little math. It's probably not the best way to do it, but that's what we have. So got all his numbers. You can compare it up against Okoronkwo's. So Sam Hubbard signed a 5-year deal with $10 million per year. Derek Barnett, 2 years, $7 million, and so on and so forth, breaking them down. So we see majority of these players, except for Harris and Smoot, and I think these snap percentage numbers are wrong. I started pulling them in, and it didn't really make sense. I'm not entirely sure the numbers from OTC are right on this. May have to go over to Football Outsiders, find a different source. But you can look at all this. He's higher on a defensive grade than every player on this list. ERP total, other than Arden Key, he's higher than every player on this list. Win percentage demolishes everybody on this list. Charles Harris at 17.5%. But Okoronkwo is just way above these guys. Pass rush productivity on the true pass set. Look at that. 12.1 for Okoronkwo. And he's well above everybody. Same with the win percent, except for Charles Harris had 30%. Good for him. But you see, he's in line with them on run stop, except for Sam Hubbard. So, you start to look at these numbers and you create a picture, and you kind of start to think like, man, he's competing with these guys. He's the 5.5 million APY that PFF put out, which is based on WAR and some other numbers and other metrics, I feel is just a little bit soft. A 2-year deal, 11 million with 5.5 per year. I feel it's a little soft. And I think it's safe to say that he might come in above that 5.5 number. And you look at this market and you see all these players, and these are players that signed just this past year or the year before. And so there's some inflation that could be accounted for, and these contracts would be valued at a little bit bigger number. But for the most part, I think it's fair to say that he's worth more than what these players have been able to get. And, we're going to put together a contract that says such that. So let's jump over here to the comp contracts. So this is from OTC from the back end. Not from the back end, from the premium section. If you ever want to subscribe to that, take a look. It's a really good deal. It's not very expensive. It's like $20 a year. He's not only competing, he's statistically better. That's right, Beige. That's exactly how I view it. And there's more to it than just stats, and I get that. But I'm not going to be digging into the tape hardcore right now. I'm just looking at the numbers, and I can paint the picture a certain way. And that's, at the end of the day, that's how the agent's going to play this. He's going to be giving the team their numbers, and the team's going to have their numbers, and they're going to have a little better access to some different numbers that I don't have access to. But for the most part, they want to paint a picture of their guy and say, hey, because the team's going to come in with their player comps, right? They're going to come in and say, these are the contracts that we feel are comparable to Okoronkwo, and his agent's going to be like, well, these are the players we think that are comparable, and these are the contracts that we think we need to be building off of. and they're going to be in two different spots. The team's going to be lower, obviously, and the agent's going to be higher. But you find that middle ground. But at the end of the day, you've got to build this case and build this picture. And like I said in the Tunsil deal, for whenever I'm doing these, it's very, very difficult to not be team agent or team side or agent side. I kind of want to find that middle ground. All right, so let's look at the contract. So, like we said, Hubbard, $10 million a year. Barnett, $7 million. Harris, $6.5 million. And Buko. And you see their ages too. And that's another key thing. And that's why I keyed in on these players here. Look, they're all 26, 27 years old. And how old is Okoronkwo? 27. Okay, I try to avoid the Brandon Grahams, who's 33 years old and things like that. I wanted to find true comparable players. So let's drop down here to their guarantees. So yeah, I think everybody can see that. Good. All right. So as we know, Sam Hubbard, he's with Cincinnati. And if you listen to the Tunsil show, and I say this all the time, a lot of teams have different contract structures. Cincinnati does not guarantee anything beyond the first year. They just don't. That might change with Joe Burrow coming up. And maybe T. Higgins. I feel like they're not going to, just a side bit, I hear like they're not really interested in paying T. Higgins. So maybe we might see a T. Higgins trade this upcoming offseason. But just so you know, just be aware that when you see these differences, when you see the 60, 30%, 40%, 50% in guaranteed money, Sam Hubbard only 25%. Cincinnati does not guarantee beyond the first year. They do an early roster bonus in the second year. And so that's kind of a functional semi-guarantee. So, but let's take a look at it here. So Barnett, 64%, $7 million guaranteed, full guarantee. That's full guarantee at signing. $7 million, $9 million total. So 50%, 40%. So these are all 2-year deals. So those numbers are all going to stay the same between that. So we're looking in this, right? 40 to 50% area. Arden Key being 75% on a 1-year deal. It's just is what it is. All right. So, all right. This is my template before we jump over to the constructor. Just kind of show you what I was looking at. Like we talked about, that 40 to 50%. So I got the guarantee at 43%, a 3-year deal at 7.25, signing bonus, blah, blah, blah. All right. Let me stop sharing this one. And let's get the contractor constructor up here. Wow, you can't share Safari and StreamYard. Wow. I was unaware of that. Why? That is crazy. It's not letting me do that. All right. I thought we did that last time. I thought we used. And see, now I'm getting the ads because I don't use Chrome enough to. Golly, man, this is frustrating. Let me see here real quick. Let me try something. Share screen. There we go. It works. Okay. I just had it down in the toolbar. I didn't have it all right, so let me see if I can figure out how to make this a little bit bigger for y'all, because it looks like that looks like a little bit better, right? Let's just do this then. We'll take my all right. Let's build a contract. Let me get my numbers up here so I can see what we're doing. All right. So we got Okoronkwo up here, defensive end. We're going to do 3 years, right? First thing we're going to do is a $6 million signing bonus. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. All right. So we got it prorated out, 2 million per year. Pretty simple. Take the signing bonus divided by the contract years up to a maximum of 5 years. All right. So the first year, we're going to do a $1.5 million salary. We're going to make that fully guaranteed at signing. The second year, so we're going to do per game roster bonus because we know, like we said, Nick loves his per game roster bonuses. And this will be all likely to be earned, LTBE, because as we noted in that very first spreadsheet, Okoronkwo played 17 games. So that is going to fully count against the cap right off the bat. All right, second year. So we didn't have, I have some incentives, and we'll get to those in a minute. Second year, 5750. Same thing, 255. I wish Nick would start using the 255 and 510 numbers, because when they went to the 17 game season, it threw the numbers off. You used to be able to just do 250,000, 500,000, 1 million or whatever. So when it's 500,000 per year, now that it's 17 games, it's like $29,412 per game. And it's just a big old mess. But if you do this 255, then it comes out to an even number. I wish he would start doing that. So Nick, if you're watching tonight, please start doing that. All right. So we said 5.75. So what we're going to do is 2 million of this is guaranteed at signing of the 5.75 million. Last year, 6,235. All right. No guaranteed salary in the last year. One thing we are going to drop in, and if you know me, I love these, roster bonus in the latter part of the contract. And this one, I'm going to put it in the last year. This is probably more the agent side of me pushing that. If you didn't catch the Tunsil show, I like to do these. I think they're an effective way to put the team in a position to make a decision. And so, and I'll put the notes in here, explain this a little bit further of why. But that, if that early decision has to be made by the team, then it gives the player some knowing what's going to happen, right? If the team doesn't want to pay this, which we're going to set it at the 5th day of the league year, then they would have to release him by March 20th of that year, assuming the league year starts on the 15th. And so that lets this player know that, hey, I'm getting released. I can get back to the market and get a new contract, whatever. Or they'd say, yeah, we're going to pay it. And that maybe locks in the player for the rest of the year. So it's a good thing versus if this wasn't here, then the team could just sit on him all off season, all through camp, OTAs, training camp, preseason, and then release him at the 53 man. And then his player value, his market value is just tanked. At that point, he's having to take a 1-year deal at the minimum value with a small bonus or whatever it may be. And he just doesn't have the chance to make the money that he probably could have back in March. So I think this is a good thing to do. They put this in place in the Brandon Cooks deal. So it shows me that is something that Nick may want to continue to deploy, or Andrew Brown, the director of football administration. So Andrew, if you're watching tonight, return my LinkedIn message. I appreciate it, buddy. All right. So we got our per game roster bonuses. We got them in here. One other thing I wanted to add was workout bonus. Nick has slowly added those in, but we'll see. All right. So let's put our notes in here. So 2023 and salary fully guaranteed. 2024 partial full guarantee of 2.0 million, right? 2025 roster bonus of 1.0 million to 5th day of the 2025 league year. Not guaranteed at all. We're not attaching any kind of injury guarantees or anything like that. All right. We got see per game, roster bonuses, every year of the contract, paid. Oh, I forgot. Yeah, 15,000 per game. Per game active. So that's the key for these per game roster bonuses. I mean, you'll see sometimes that players get this with if they're just on the 53-man roster, but Houston does per game roster bonuses. So you have to be on the 48-man game day roster, not inactive. You have to be active to earn that money. Workout bonuses, 250,000, 2024 and 2025. Player must complete 89% of activities. So that's generally the clause that Houston puts in their player contracts. This was created under the Chris Olsen administration with Rick Smith. They would put in, they actually would do de-escalators in player contracts. It was really cool. They would put in, if a player didn't show up for off-season activities like OTAs, mini camps, things like that, the player would actually lose money on their salary, would drop like 250,000. So it was kind of like a form of a workout bonus. But this one will do, the player will earn 250,000 in 2024, 2025. They must complete 89% of the activities. All right. So our incentives. So what I did was, let's see here, 2.5. All right. So I think what I did was 500,000 per year per Pro Bowl. Original ballot. Somebody's trying to call me. I think that was Patrick. Original ballot. Can't be no substitute. What's up, Sam? Good to see you, late arrival. Yeah, so Pro Bowl, so original ballot. You know, you can't be no alternate. It can't be after the third time somebody backed out and you got chosen, you know, like we saw with that was Patrick, that knucklehead. It was, you know, it's not Tyler Hundley who got into the Pro Bowl, right? So it's got to be original ballot. So we have that. So that's 1.5 million. So it's per year. And then we know Nicky loves his playing time. So what did we say? Is that's one? So we need 1 million. We'll do, I think I did the incentives in 2024, 2025. So or in 2025 for playtime. So what they'll probably do is stack them, right? So we'll say 150,000 for 40% playtime, defensive snaps. Can't be getting special team snaps. Nope, that doesn't count. 150,000 for 50%, and let's see here, 200,000 for 60% playtime. I haven't really seen Nick do anything related to like player performance per se, like sacks. In this case, you know, sacks for a defensive player or interceptions for a defensive back. They've been sticking mainly to playtime incentives and Pro Bowl incentives. So the player in this case in 2024 and 2025 would have to earn would earn additional money if he gets his playing time over 40% per year, 50% year, 60% year, and gets to the Pro Bowl. So we're going to put these all as not likely to be earned because it's based on the year before. And like we talked about, he had 44% playtime, but we stacked this one in 2024. So this one's going to be 500,000. And then this will be 1 million. This will be 1 million. So we have a total maximum value of 24.25 million. So base value 21.75 million with an APY of 7.25. Full guarantees in 2023, partial guarantee in 2024. So let me add this up. So total guarantee at signing, because that was the number we looked at right back on the player comps. We wanted to look at a total guarantee. So what was that? 3.5. So it's 9.5 million. Yeah, salary guarantee and signing bonus. Doesn't have any injury guarantees, nothing vesting, anything like that. So it's just a 9.5 million guaranteed money. So if you were to see this reported in the media, it'd be Okoronkwo signed a 3-year deal worth up to $24.25 million with 9.5 guaranteed. Is how the media would report it, because that's how the agent would leak it. They would want the maximum value out there. So this is pretty much how I feel it. Like I said, PFF came in at 5.5 million over 2 years for 11 million total. I'm coming in a little bit more aggressive at 7.25. Hopefully it's not my blinders with the Houston Texans, and being a player that I've enjoyed watching, I try to be unbiased as much as I can. But I think this is pretty fair. You know, I've been pretty happy with it. I kind of stewed on it. I love that Stream Deck thing. Kind of stewed on it for probably 5-6 days now. I started working on this during lunch break earlier in this week, Monday, Tuesday, and finally came to the numbers that you see here and kind of what I felt like was an appropriate number. You know, I feel pretty good about it. We'll have to wait and see if Houston wants to sign Okoronkwo, see what he gets out on the open market. The edge defender free agent market is not barren, but it's not that great. But the draft is pretty good. There's some good depth out there as well, in addition to the top of the market guys, or top of the draft guys for that matter. So, you know, this is it. I mean, I feel pretty good, and I can't wait to see how the free agency market plays out for him. And if this number, you know, maybe I'm completely wrong. Who knows? Maybe I'm completely wrong, and he gets like a 1-year deal for $3 million. I mean, the market's wild, but you know, you hope his agent is able to secure him the right number. And like we talked about, this number here, I feel pretty good about it. So, and what you can do is pretty cool. You can export these out as PDFs, and I'll show you what it looks like. All right, let me change the share screen here. All right, percent share screen. Share. Okay, so this is what spits out. It's pretty cool. Nick Katori, he built this tool, and he does all the back end work for Over the Cap. Very, very smart dude. And he's a big Denver Broncos fan, writes a in the air.com or in the thinair.com has a blog. So if you're ever interested in that. So you'll see it spits out all your notes, right? Got your top level, total contract value, APY, max value, guarantees, how much is vested, running cash numbers. It's a really cool tool. So you can dump it onto a PDF. It's got a link buried into it that shoots you straight over to the web page. It's a very cool tool. So that's pretty much what I had for tonight. I think we had a few questions on the board. We'll get to them. Let's see here. Let me minimize a few things so I don't get too terribly distracted. All right, let's see here. We did talk about that one. So TK, congratulations, Pep out of the Texans. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing the fanfare over the past 24 months with Pep Hamilton. When he first got here as a QB coach, everybody was pretty excited. Again, considering his work with Andrew Luck in Indianapolis and his work with Justin Herbert in Los Angeles. And, everybody was excited. And then we saw he did fairly well with Davis Mills. Davis had a pretty good back half of his rookie year. Then the team hired him on as offensive coordinator. Majority of the folks were excited, myself included. I thought it was a great promotion. I was really excited to see his system. The players talked it up. Davis Mills was excited during training camp, and then we saw what happened. So, yeah, Pep is under contract, but not on the staff. And, just make sure you make that distinction if you're going to tweet about it, things like that. He hasn't been fired. It's a weird distinction. He's not really been fired. He's just not on the staff anymore. Let's see here. Rockets lost in the worst way possible. Tony, I'm sorry. I didn't watch the Rockets. I don't know. So happy we kept Dylan Thompson. Did we? I haven't heard. All right. Beige says, what's the benefit of paying signing bonus versus having the same amount in base salary? So, signing bonus paid up front and, salary, if the player were to get suspended, something like that, he's going to lose out on that money per week. Whereas a signing bonus, so let's say it's a $20 million signing bonus over 4 years. So it's prorated out $5 million per year. If a player was suspended for 6 weeks, 6 weeks of the prorated money is paid back. Whereas if he was under contract and had a big base salary of $17 million and missed 6 games, he would lose $6 million instead of 30% of $5 million. So from a player aspect, the ability to lose money is a big difference. And then obviously you're getting paid up front. Not always up front, nobody ever really gets into the details of the signing bonus structure, but a lot of times, if it's a $20 million signing bonus, he'll get $5 million within 5 days of signing, another $10 million in 3 months, and another $5 million in January of next year. They're not just writing a check for $20 million right there on the spot. It's very rare that happens. They stagger those payments out. But for contract comparisons, we stack it all in 1 year. And then in addition, if you do the signing bonus, you can spread out that money over 5 years, right? So you don't want to, if you have that big base salary in year one, then that's going to drive up your cap value. There are teams that do a cash model. Las Vegas is one, and Tampa Bay. They're the two big primary cash model teams. If you follow the show for the past, I forget how long I've been doing this, couple of years now, or year and a half, I've talked about different contract structures. And there's different, there's the heavy signing bonus model, which is what like Cincinnati uses, Green Bay, Baltimore. And then there's a cash model, which is like Las Vegas and Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, they basically build the dead money into the player's salary. So instead of doing a big signing bonus, they will just guarantee 2 years of salary at a pretty big number and not have any prorated money whatsoever. They'll do a roster bonus, a lump sum roster bonus, which is not spread out over the contract. But from my eyes, I think you kind of want to meet in the middle, right? You want to have a little bit of signing bonus, good little salary. You can drop that year one salary down, increase the signing bonus, and spread that money out if you want to backload it a little bit. But that would be, more or less at a high level, my input on that. I believe it helps to backload the contract. In some cases, it does. But in some cases, it can hurt you, right? If you backload it and you stuff a bunch of dead money in the back end of that contract on a big free agent signing, and the player doesn't work, as we know with free agency, it's a crapshoot, right? You're paying market value for a player that the other team didn't want. So if you stuff a bunch of dead money at the back end of that contract and it doesn't work out after 1 year on a 4-year contract, you're stuck with a bunch of dead money. So you kind of want to, that's what I'm saying. You kind of want to meet that medium, that halfway where you flatten it out, get a nice flat contract cap structure, give the players some upfront cash, give the team some favorable terms on the back end of the deal, and just have that meeting of the ways in the middle of the road. Travis also says, given how much cap space rockets up in 2024, do you think we'll go hard on backloading a lot of contracts? I don't know. I mean, we've seen the contracts that Andrews built the last, 4 or 5 years from his time with Chris Olsen, then under Jack Easterby, and now under Nick. And I think they're going to stick with a pretty balanced structure. They may backload a little bit because the cap is going to heavily explode over 2024, 2025, 2026, and beyond. It's not going to just be a dramatic increase in 2024. The league wants to do a nice staggered increase. They don't want to just lump in this huge 25% increase in 2024 because that messes with player contracts, things like that. So they'll stagger it up, 15, 16, 18% increase year over year. So they could backload a little bit and hedge that rise in the salary cap. I just don't think it makes sense per se, for the most part. If and they've only been signing short-term contracts, 1 and 2 year deals. Cam Johnson was the only one who got anything longer than 2 years. So if they end up going to 3 and 4 year deals on a few, whether it be extensions or a big name free agent this year, I think they're going to stick with their balanced deal and just kind of have a little small percentage increase each year that rises with the cap. That's a better contract. I thought he would get. I know, Marcos. Like I said, I feel like I'm a little bullish. Maybe I'm a little too aggressive, but you got to read the market, man. It's tough. It's tough. It's a tough deal to read the market. I will say that. How you feel about the new DC and potential Cliff as OC? Burke wasn't a sexy signing by any means. I feel like he's more of a defensive line coach with a DC title, defensive coordinator title. I think, I think he is someone that's a pretty aggressive motivator type coach. He's not a player type coach. You have to excuse my bottle cracking open this stuff. He's I'm not trying to say a meathead, but he's an old school coach. He's the loud yeller, things like that. So I think he's kind of the balance for D'Amico in that term. We can see D'Amico's a very calm, soothing kind of character and, good players coach. And I think Matt Burke kind of brings the balance out on the other end of the spectrum. We'll see who ends up doing play calls. I've been a big proponent of D'Amico not calling plays. I feel like he needs to focus on the game, focus on game management, clock management, challenge flags, things like that, and let your staff call the plays. And then he makes the decisions on fourth downs, go for it, things like that, aggressiveness. But I'm not entirely sure I want Matt Burke calling plays either. So let's see how that plays out. As for Cliff, man, that came out of left field. Talk about a wild turn of events. Not 12 hours ago, everybody just was penciling in Bobby Slowick for the offensive coordinator. I think Cliff as OC it's intriguing. Don't get me wrong. I'm a little bit excited about it. I try not to look back too much at his time in Arizona. I think he got a little railroaded by Kyler Murray, and maybe that's a bad thing to say about him, letting a player railroad him like that. But I think the owner Bidwell kind of gave Kyler a little too much runway over there, and Kingsbury was the recipient of the railroading. So, I mean, he had some very good success for 8-10 games a year, and just fall off a cliff for the back end of the season. And my dog is upset. She's got me all distracted. But I mean, for the most part, the air raid system, it is what it is. It's a cool system, but I feel like the NFL's probably catches up to it pretty quick. And I don't know that they have quite the personnel to run that type of offense. But we'll see. They may have to make some changes. It frees up things at center position. I will say that. If they end up going with Slowick, then if you end up going with the veteran center, and there's only two of them out there, Posick and Bradbury. But if they end up going with Kyler Murray, then that opens things up with Bradley Bozeman out of Carolina as well. So I'm intrigued. I feel like it's basically down to Slowick and Kingsbury at this point. Both of them will be good. I don't have a favorite one way or another. So, that's my take on that. Do you think Titus gets an extension this year too? If he wants to have an extension before the start of this season, it's going to be below market value for his performance and his skill set. He'll have to concede on a few things if he wants to get it done early. I think probably the best course of action is they go into the regular season as is, and then if he continues showing and playing well at right tackle, then you do a mid-season extension. And I think that's very much on the table, where get 10 games in the season and go ahead and knock it out, and save a little bit of cap dollars, roll that over into 2024. I think it's definitely on the table. I think it's a very real chance that it happens, but I think he needs to prove it just a little bit more. He had some injuries early in his career. He had some coaching decisions that, let's be honest, really screwed him over by putting him at left guard. I think he's just strictly a tackle. And I think it's very much on the table if they wanted to do an in-season type of extension. If he gets to the end of the season and no extension's done, then he's going to wait till March and see what his market is. And we'll be right back to this situation like we're talking about right now. So let's see. Brian Chubby Bear, VT, this might be a hard question to answer quickly, but how are the Saints going to function? Thomas has a 60. Okay, first off, Thomas does not have a $60 million cap hit in 2024. Spot Rack, those stupid thieves are completely wrong. Okay? I'm sorry. I just don't like them. They're thieves. They steal stuff and don't give out credit. And they block me on Twitter. I block them back. And, I just don't get along with them. Ever since they stole my Kareem Jackson contract, that's where it goes. So they lowered the base salary for Michael Thomas down to the minimum for 2023 and 2024. It's got a little funky roster bonus for $200,000 the first day of the league year in 2023. But he's going to be released either March 15th or March 16th, and he'll be a post-June 1 designation. You can't use the post-June 1 designation until after the new league year starts. So they'll complete that transaction right after the new league year starts, designated as a post-1, and he'll be a free agent, free to sign, and the team will carry his number all the way up until June 2nd. They lowered his 2024 salary to the minimum. So actually his cap charge today in 2024 is $41.3 million, if I remember correctly. But that he's not going to see that year. So the $60 million number that's floating around, very much incorrect. How can they pay Carr? They're going to have to pull every single lever that they have to get the number down to be able to take on Carr as a trade. I think if I remember correctly, Jason and I were looking at the numbers. If they do every restructure possible, release a few players, they can get from like $60 million or whatever it is, $50 million over the cap to like 33 and change, which is exactly the number that they would need to get to for Derek Carr. So they can make it work. And then they would just restructure and redo Derek Carr's contract and then free up probably, $10, $15 million, maybe close to $20 million. And that way they can sign their draft class, maybe sign a couple free agents, things like that. So it can be done. It's just not very pretty. And I'm not sold. I don't think a trade with Derek Carr happens with anybody for that matter. He's got the no trade clause. I think this was just, I tweeted it out. I said it was very nice of Las Vegas to let New Orleans and Derek Carr pre-negotiate his free agent contract. And I truly believe that. I think this was a way to let Derek see what his market value is going to be. And I don't think it's going to be near the number that his contract currently is, which is like $39.8 million per 38 and change per year over the next 3 years with 40.2 guaranteed. So it doesn't make sense to me for anybody to trade for that. I think you can get better terms and a better contract. You probably have to maybe pay a little more guaranteed, but it just makes no sense. So can they do it? Yeah. They can squeeze out just enough pennies to take on Derek Carr in a trade. Why aren't we that aggressive? We, as in Houston. I mean, I just don't think the team is interested in Derek Carr. I threw it out there. I wrote about it on capandtrade.substack.com that if you're not subscribed to that, check it out, see if it interests you. I wrote about it, has some contract proposals in there, and I thought it made sense for Houston as something to take a look at. But yeah, I'm still on the Bryce Young train, and that will be that. Get for spot rack in the octagon. Book it. Me and Michael, I'll take him down. I'll give it to the dude. He can build a website. That website's gorgeous. I will give him that. The spot rack website is very, very pretty. But their numbers are not very good. Salary cap gymnastics. Yeah, pretty much. The Saints really just need to accept their position and blow it up. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of been the mentality for the past like 3 or 4 years or 2 or 3 years with the media. Like, at what point are they just going to blow it up and accept their fate? But, they keep hedging. And I think the COVID year, when the drop in the cap really put a dent in their plans, I think they were perfectly content to keep this restructuring model going. And they could have done it, I think they could have easily been in a very favorable position at this point in time had the COVID pandemic year not happened and with the drop in the cap. So Put them a little behind the 8 ball, but they're going to find a way. So, who are the players that the Saints would have to cut? Well, let's go take a look. Because I think the players that they would want to restructure would be Lattimore, Ramczyk, Pete, Andreas Pete, maybe Kamara. Winston, that's the player I don't know about. I don't know if he's going to be a release or not. And then, like we talked about, Michael Thomas will be a release. And then Demario Davis will be a restructure. David Onyemata, he's a defensive line player that somebody Texans need to look at. His contract will void, so his numbers, he'll come off the table. Tyrann Mathieu is another player I think that the team's going to have a big decision on. His play starting up. He played pretty well last year. Just he's 30 years old. You got to make that decision. Is he really worth, $7 million next year? Let's see here. Who else? So Marcus Davenport, his contract's going to void out, so he'll be a free agent. James Hurst would be one player that I think they might be looking to maybe move on from. He's got a $2 million roster bonus this year. It's due on the 5th day of the league year. They might convert that. I mean, that one, they've already got some void years on, so maybe they can convert that number and free up some dollars with him. Bradley Roby's over there. He's got a pretty low salary. So I think they're going to be more focused on restructures, and then you got the 2 players that are going to become free agents through contract voiding. All right. Well, I think that's all the questions. If you haven't, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit that like button down there. Really helps out the channel, helps out with the algorithm. I say I'm not going to say that word every time, but it happens. And Honey Badger getting moved. I wouldn't say that. I'm just, I think that the team has a decision to make. He's 30 years old. Can he continue on playing that well? We'll see. But, drop a like. I really appreciate everybody. I appreciate all the interactions tonight. I hope you found this little session informative. We'll find some other players to do this with. I want to look at free agency, a non-Texans player. So if you've got any suggestions of players that you want to take a look at, or you want me to take a look at for a potential contract, let me know. Send me a note. You can email me, Troy@overthecap.com, or you can send me a message on Twitter @TexansCap. I wouldn't tell you how to get a hold of me on Discord because I'm still learning that nonsense. But send me a message. Let me know what you think. If there's anybody you want to do this with, I don't think there's really any more other free agents per se for Houston that we can do this kind of session on. And I really don't want to dive into a Titus Howard extension just yet. So I think we need to look at free agency, go out into the world and see, whether it's Deron Payne. Maybe that's somebody we would take a look at. Maybe look at a safety, things like that. So, or maybe a linebacker, Tremaine Edwards out of Buffalo, somebody I think would be interesting to take a look at. So if you got any suggestions, send me an email, send me a message on Twitter. My DMs are open. And make sure you, like I said, drop that like, hit subscribe if you haven't already done so. And with that, I think about covered everything I wanted to cover tonight. So one other thing, I need to test something. So let me know if y'all can hear this. I don't think you'll be able to. Let me see. It's like a beeping noise. Anybody hear that at all? Throw it up on the comment board. Let me do it one more time. It's deep, 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 deep. It's like a radio sound. Anybody hear anything at all? See, you're no fun. Can't even answer me. I'm assuming that nobody heard it. So I've got to figure out. So I've got a soundboard on the stream deck, and I've got to figure out how to make it. Okay. Thank you. That's what I thought. I've got to figure out how to only when you make the beat voice. Right. I got to figure out how to make that play through here. And I think I've got to do it with a voice banana or a loop deck or something like that with a virtual channel. And I don't know if I want to play all that fun game. So, all right. I think that's it. So I appreciate everybody. Appreciate the interaction, and I hope you found it informative. And with that, let's go ahead and close it down. Everybody have a good weekend. Watch the Super Bowl. Have a lot of fun. If I had to make a choice, I'm going Philadelphia Eagles. I think they're going to win. I think they're going to dominate in the trenches. I think they're going to get all over Patrick Mahomes. I think they're going to make his life very difficult. I think Bradbury and Darius Slay are going to shut down the wide receivers. And I think future Texan TJ Edwards is going to have a game. So, I hope everybody has a fun time this weekend with Super Bowl. It's going to be a great game. It's one of those it's a good time to finally see the two best teams in the Super Bowl. So everybody have a good weekend. I love y'all. Appreciate it. We'll have a good night, and we'll see y'all Wednesday night. So, hey, before I go away, Wednesday night is going to be really cool. I'm hoping that the guest pans out. He's told me he's in, but he's a general manager, not of the NFL, of XFL, but he was a former general manager at NFL. And I'm really excited to chat with him. So he said he's good to go. I got to check with him on like Monday to make sure he's good to go. And if he does, then, it's going to be really fun. It's going to be really, really, really fun. I'm really excited to talk to a front agent guy. So I may geek out a little bit on that one. So, all right. Yeah. Like Sam said, send me a message on any players you want to take a look at. We'll see if we can find somebody, find another Friday or Saturday night for us to do this. And we'll get it done. So everybody have a good night. I know I said that like 4 times. So everybody have a good night. And we'll see you on Wednesday. Peace.